This is Lisa with Modest Menagerie, and today we are doing a house tour of all of our myriad animals. We're starting with the bunnies. Keeping bunnies is fun, but it is a lot of work. I have these bunnies free roaming in the kitchen, which means I do a lot of cleaning here. They will use a litter box most of the time. Rabbits will eat about 70% hay, 10 to 20% pellets, and the final 10 to 20% being the greens. First we have Ada over here. We got her and this shy dude back here, Isaac. Originally just off Craigslist to some random pair of male bunnies. We quickly found out that Ada was indeed a female, and they had some litters, and these are our two holdbacks from their litters. So we have mom, dad, and their two daughters. Isaac is fixed at this point, so no concern of more bunnies. Rabbits do indeed breed like rabbits. There is a reason behind that saying. So if you do get bunnies, you want to be really careful that you have the same gender or one of them is fixed. This is Rapunzel. We've named her Rapunzel because she loves to sit in the cast iron skillet, which at this point I have relinquished to her because I don't use it except for once a year or so. This is Gracie. She is the shyest of our bunnies. She was the runt of the first litter. Isaac has the cool chill guy personality and just loves to be lazy, sleep and slowly eat at the same time, get slow, gentle pets. Their mannerisms are wonderful. They are curious and sweet. They have so much body language. When they're scared, their ears will be down. You can see how Gracie reacts versus Ada. Ada definitely loves people and loves, but she loves food more than anything else. When they get upset at you, they will storm away and flick their paws, which is why I picked up Ada, because she's going to be upset with me. Oh, calm down. These are Salmon Frodo, my axolotls. They are Mexican salamanders that retain their larval features through their entire life. They can grow to be about 12 inches. As you can see, this one right here is roughly 6. And they can live 10 plus years. An axolotl needs to live at about low 60s in temperature. I try to keep these guys at 62, which is a feat if you live in a hotter climate. Keeping an axolotl as a pet, you will want to keep in mind that they tend to be very hidey, shy creatures. You want to give them adequate hides and keep in mind that when the light's on, more often than not, they're going to be in those hides and nowhere that you can see. They like slow-moving waters, so be careful about your filtration. Otherwise, you can stress them out. My axolotl tank is fairly unique among axolotl tanks because I have everything very planted and bioactive as much as I can. Axolotls are suction feeders. They may not have the best judgment on what they put in their mouths. They can definitely cause problems if they live in gravel substrate because they will swallow those pieces of gravel and then not be able to digest them. And so they do have a sand substrate. I do have all of these plants, which according to all the research I did, most of them aren't supposed to survive in 62 degrees, but they are all quite happy. I do have a small population of shrimp in here as well, which is surprising, but there is a breeding population that is withstanding the cold temperatures. My personal interest that makes this tank unique is a bit nerdy. I do have it laid out in the Lord of the Rings trilogy style, with a background featuring the 3 books and a hobbit house on one side, Minas Tirith in the middle, and a Barad-dûr tower on this side next to the volcano. So here are my parakeets. They are sweet, lovely little songbirds hailing from Australia. They are called parakeets in America, but their actual name is a budgerigar, or budgie for short. Parakeets are best homed with other parakeets. Otherwise, the social need is a lot. Once they are social and have their friends, they will just be delightful little birds that sing a lot, make a lot of squawky noises, and are wonderful to watch. You do want to have a large, spacious cage. Honestly, the bigger the better. The absolute minimum is large enough that they can spread their wings in multiple positions inside the cage. They will require lots of toys, colorful, interactive-y things that they can climb on, chew on, tear apart, all of the above. I do have 6 parakeets, and they do all have names. So we have the blue parakeet, who I've had the longest. His name is Keely. I have a green male parakeet named Gimli. He was the second that we got of this grouping. Shortly thereafter, we got our 2 girls. The yellow one is Eowyn, and the white and blue one is Arwen. And lastly, we got another 2 teal females. One is Goldberry, and the other is Rosie. Right here, we are looking at my Cockatiel, Mr. Strider. He is a wonderful little bird. He is basically, in care requirements, a parakeet, but bigger. Cockatiels are sometimes talkers, but more often they will be whistlers and mimickers. Here we have Claudia. She is our red ear slider turtle. We found her in this neighborhood that we moved into. She was in a bush. She was drying out in a bad way and was not looking hot. We decided to bring her home and put her in a plastic tub full of water while we figured out what to do. As it turns out, turtles are pretty demanding. They need a lot of water. We're talking 75 gallons, 100 gallons, something like that for an adult turtle, at least of her size. Red-eared sliders grow to roughly 10 to 12 inches as females, and she is full size. When we got Claudia, we got her in a tub and just got her back to healthy. Then we moved into a temporary 40-gallon turtle setup tank while we tried to find something bigger. We ended up finding this setup complete as is, no fish or anything, but the background and the 2-layer tank, which is combined. They are all a single water system. As we got to know her in that meantime, we learned she's not a swimmer. She is a lazy turtle. She likes just with one foot on the bottom and her head just above water. But what a turtle requires is you have to have a lot of fish tank space. Turtles are nasty. They are extra dirty. They have large poos that will spike your ammonia just immediately. There's nothing really to do about it. And they need a lot of their own space. They also need UV bulbs and basking spots. So the beauty of this whole tank setup is that she has 90 gallons of water that she lives in. We have goldfish in here, not so much to keep her company, but so that they sift the sand and the gravel at the bottom so it doesn't get gross and slimy. And then it goes down into the bottom where it will get slightly manually cleaned by all of our fish down here. This aquarium is proudly dubbed our Hogwarts Aquarium, and we have stocked it with cleanup crews that can handle the amount of ammonia that Claudia will drop on any given day. At the far left there, we have a small school of ghost catfish, which are completely transparent in their body. They look like little milky white spots. And they are filter feeders, so they'll eat food right out of the water stream. We have several fish here working along with the plants, trying to keep the algae down and cleaning stuff off of the plants. 1 loach, 4 Coriodoras, and we do have a long fin albino bristlenose in there named Molly. We have a vampire shrimp in there who is a filter feeder. He waves his fans of hands in the water to get food and push it in his mouth. We have a lot of snails, and we have packed it very densely, as you can see, with a lot of plants. All of this helps to filter. We also have 2 overflow filters on the back and a giant canister filter in the back. Total, this filtration system should be able to handle 300 to 400 gallons of water, which is overkill for this quantity of water, which is exactly what we need. We found a turtle sick in a bush, and then this is how we started getting into aquariums. Hello. Yeah.
Do you steal the show?
Are you stealing? Oh. And this here is little Howie. This guy is a Papillon Chihuahua cross, and he was a street dog.
He's the most pathetic individual that's ever existed.
He is starting to get a little older. He's probably the most pliable dog I've ever encountered. He acts more like a liquid than any animal I have, and will just fit into the smallest, squeeziest of spots. This is my personal pet tank. I absolutely love them, and it carries the larger fish that are definitely a personality fish. I fell in love with the bikers. They are from tropical Africa, and they actually behave a little bit like mud skippers. They have primitive lungs where they can use their front fins to push themselves from puddle to puddle if it starts to dry out. They are nicknamed swamp dragons, which I fondly refer to this as my dragon tank. My bikers are extremely lazy in the best of ways. They will hang up here in the plants, or they'll lay on the heater, or they'll lay on the top of the wood log over there like that one is right now, or they'll just kind of sit. I have my 2 of them in here. I also have Nagini, who is a rope fish. She is basically a more snake-like biker. My mid-swimmers are Severums. I have a turquoise Severum right here. His name is Ferenz. And then I have McGonagall, the yellow Sev, in the back. I have a Plecostomus this size, Hagrid. I have a red-tailed Bodialoch. He is the shyest fish of all. His name is Fang, but really we are culturing a whole biome of microorganisms in here beyond our fish. This is our Congo Tetra tank. We had started using these baskets for hydroponics. We use it to grow wheatgrass and sprouts for the bunnies and some for the burbs. In this tank, we ended up with a small school of Congo Tetras. There are 6. There are 2 females and 4 males. There is also a beautiful male beta back here. Also in this tank, bladder snails. Most people consider bladder snails a pest, but personally I do like them. They help me with the job of cleaning up algae. This particular aquarium, because of the aquaponics, because of how full it is of growing living things, is actually really, really, really clean water. It seems to hardly ever need a water change, and that is just the amount of stuff we're removing with the plant growth. Here we have a small pet tank of mine. It is our smallest tank, just at 5.5 gallons, that I randomly purchased one day at a thrift store, brought it home, and decided we had a tank. As far as fish goes, there is exactly 1 in here. I have a scarlet baddie in here who is not quite an inch, I would say. He is a mature adult. I do, however, have a breeding colony of snails and shrimp. They are both just going crazy. And as you can see, all of the plants. Here we have a surprisingly delightful tank. It doesn't have a single fish in it. This is our shrimp tank. What we do have in here are one of the biggest varieties of plants of any of our tanks, and a very large breeding colony of shrimp. I really enjoy this tank because the way the plants grow in the shrimp tank doesn't compare to almost any other tank that we have. It's able to grow the really, really delicate plants like this one that just don't have a good time at all. The shrimp are constantly cleaning off the little leaves and making everything pristine and lovely in here. We did start with a variety of colorations when we started, and we get some really interesting genetics playing around here. But primarily, when you breed the different colors together, you will get wild types, which are just clear with little black markings on their backs. However, they still carry some recessive genes, and it's fascinating watching this tank as it grows and changes. Right now, there are a few red shrimp babies in here, and we haven't had any red shrimp in this tank for several months. Besides shrimp, we do have a small handful of snails. We have one large old assassin snail, which we love because he has a forest growing on his back. And then otherwise, there's just a few little snails that I'll occasionally drop in here. Some of them will get eaten. The ones that stay around are nice cleaners. Here we are sitting at this seemingly empty cube of water. And this is actually home to our rainbow crab, Loki. He is a semi-aquatic crab, and as such needs both land and water areas. He had a lot more land before he did his own re-landscaping. Loki and really rainbow and patriot crabs are one of many semi-aquatic crabs. The most common ones that I know of in the pet trade are patriots, panther crabs, vampire crabs, golden claw, tie devil, fiddlers, and red claws. They all have different or varying levels of aggression. Some of them can actually work with community tanks. Rainbows tend to be one of the most aggressive. He cannot have housemates, except for a actually a thriving population of ghost shrimp in here, which I just imagine he can't catch enough of to curb their population. He is probably 2.5 inches in carapace length. He is very, very, very hidey. You will almost never see him out, and when I do stumble upon him out, it is a quick glance when I come up on this landing, and then he's just gone. He will get to the point where his carapace is about this big, about 4 inches, and his legs, of course, will make him look more like an 8-inch crab. If and when he gets to that point for us, we'll probably need to upgrade his habitat. In this enclosure, I have Spike, my bearded dragon. They are one of the most common lizards and an excellent beginner pet. They are Australian desert lizards. This particular bearded dragon, my Spike, she loves climbing. I have had Spike for about 4 years. I got her from a breeder. She was the runt of the litter and had the nick off of her tail already. She grew up mainly on crickets and various greens. I have since switched her to dubias with veg instead of the crickets. Spike is absolutely metal, as are almost every lizard everywhere. She will hang from the weirdest perches, and she will go to town crunching on her food. I do have reptile carpet going on now in the bottom of this enclosure, and just a lot of things to climb on, sit on, some rocks as heat sinks if she likes, to give her variety. They are called bearded dragons because they have these big beards, which will usually change color with their mood and might flare out. So here we have perhaps my weirdest located aquarium. This is my bathroom tank. I have the one gourami who did not get along with anyone else in the turtle tank. And then we have this orange algae eater down here, who's gotten pretty big, and that is just where he hangs out most of the time. Also inhabiting this are my two favorites. We have 2 African frogs. They are cute and adorable, and the best thing about them is their croak. You can audibly hear it when they are croaking. Sounds like a little tiny hinge. Anytime you come in here and they've been in dark and you turn on the light, they almost always will start croaking, which just puts a smile on your face. So this is our Blackwater tank, and it is modeled after South American and Congo river basins. The water is completely full of tannins, which the wood and leaf rot will naturally release, which does stain the water this darker color. You don't really see much going on in this tank. And that is because this tank holds ambush predators. Primarily what we have is 2 ambush predators in the back that will occasionally come out. They are leopard bushfish, which is a kind of gourami. Also, in here we have a butterfly fish. The butterfly fish sits on the top of the water and tries to look like a dead leaf, so that small insects or fish and bug life will swim close to it so that it can strike. Other than that, we have the main swimmers that you see. We have 3 giant danios in here. And then we have this tiny little thing, this little twig catfish. And then we have so many rabbit snails. We had a rabbit snail clutch actually hatch and is going strong in here. So hopefully they'll start growing up. So here we have my dog Link. He is absurd. I got him from a rescue that actually picked him up from a kill shelter from LA. He was kept in a cage with 2 other dogs, and of course, him being as derpy as he is was not very attractive in such conditions. And yeah, he almost got put down after being picked up in LA. But I got him instead. I was looking for basically any spaniel, and I found him first. When I got Link, he was pretty fresh from LA in the summer. He had burns all over his pads, and he is one of the most anxiety-driven dogs I've ever met. He is absolutely in love with me. He has taken to me as his person completely, but otherwise he's terrified of people. Every stranger I introduce him to, it takes anywhere from 5 to 6 months of meetings before he's comfortable with them. He's pretty much good with any animal whatsoever. He is fine with birds on his heads or snakes sharing space with him as well. It is only people he's afraid of. He is possibly the most derpy dog. He obviously has a pretty severe underbite and the one snaggletooth. When he smiles, it's just full of joy. But when his mouth is closed, he's kind of got an ugly mug. that I have completely fallen in love with. So here we have our primary snake rack. We do have a couple elsewhere. And it is definitely not a professional snake rack. I'm working on that. But for now, it is a shelf unit with heat cables and tubs that work just fine for housing our pets. This is Rand, my Western Hognose snake. He is an adult. He is a male. In Western Hognoses, there is a very dramatic difference in sizing between male and female. So he is fairly small for the average adult hoggy. He is het for albino, means that he carries one albino gene and one regular gene. He presents as regular, but he does have that albino in him for breeding purposes. He is such a sweetie. Hognoses are a kind of unique snake in that they are burrowers. They have this wonderful little turnip on their nose. They almost have a beak, and they are adorable. When a hognose gets scared, they will do a lot of adorable things to try to beat whatever's attacking them. First, they will start getting hissy and upset at you. Oh, hi! They tend to flatten their neck so that they look like a little cobra, which is what this guy is doing right now. And will start hissing. What was that, sir? If this doesn't work, they will go into what we call a bluff strike, where they just attack with their mouth closed, but they'll smack their little face into you. Oh. And then hoggies have perhaps one of my favorite things ever, is if they get really terrified, they will flip over and play dead. Dramatically, like their tongue will roll out, they will do dramatic death coils, the whole 9 yards. And it is one of the cutest things I've ever seen. I will not do this to any of my snakes because that means that they are absolutely terrified for their lives. Rand apparently does not like cameras. So fierce. Hognoses in the wild eat a lot of frogs, salamanders, newts, that kind of thing. And technically, they are venomous. They are my one and only venomous snake. However, the venom is very, 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 very minor. It is in the very back of his teeth, and he has to chew into you to get it into your flesh. It's mild. For most humans, it's like a bee sting. Why are you so angry? This is Perrin. He is a 1-year-old male hognose. He is, as you can pretty easily see, a visual albino. He is actually of a green line, which means it goes more in towards the green undertones rather than the red. Albinos tend to trend one or the other ways. And he is a green line albino. This is Fail. She is a green line albino Western hognose, about a year old. This is Avienda. She is my 2020 born female Western Arctic hognose, though she does present like a wild type. This is Hedwig, our anerythristic male corn snake. I will call that anery because that word is not my friend. He is an anery corn, which means that he has a lack of pigmentation. Normally, corn snakes tend to be orange, brown, red in coloration, somewhere in there depending on their locality. And he just does not have that coloration. He has this typical corn snake patterning. One interesting thing about corn snakes is corn snakes are actually a subtype of rat snakes. Pretty much every corner of the globe, with some exception of the islands, have some kind of rat snake locally. They tend to be more darty snakes, so they'll move around a lot more, but also not quite be comfortable on arms because they are more accustomed to moving on the ground. Here we have my beautiful Crookshanks. She is a female Ocotillo corn snake. Ocotillo is actually a natural variation. They are found typically in South Virginia area, wild, and it is incredibly bright for a wild coloration, but this snake just blends in with autumn leaves. Probably don't rub against the mic. little one. Here we have Zoe. She is a normal spotted python, and she was a mom this year for us. She is an arboreal python. She is an Australian python, and they are kind of wonderful. She is from the genus Antaresia, which is one with 4 types of Australian pythons. So there is spotted, there are children's, there are pygmies, and there are Stimson's pythons. Because she is arboreal, she loves climbing on things. They will absolutely lean on your glasses and hang on them if you let them. Or earrings, or pigtails, you name it. But she is just very inquisitive, and I've never, ever even had a false strike from this girl. Here's Wash, a male adult spotted python. Spotted pythons have actually evolved so that they can hang off of stalactites and snatch bats out of the air. They are fantastic and have such incredible amounts of muscle for a thin snake. Every one of these Antaresia pythons has some beautiful iridescence where you can just catch rainbows in their scales like an oil slick. Here is one of their new hatchling babies. They just hang on the tip of my finger. They are difficult to get eating, but we are working with that. They are just tiny little miniatures of their parents. This is Simon. He is a granite morph spotted python, but right now you'll notice that he looks pale and faded out. That is because he is in blue hard. That is the term for getting ready to shed. So it just changes to this pale, milky, gray-blue color.
Basically, the outer layer of his scales are starting to separate.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a little air gap in between what's going away and what's staying.
Often there will be a lens cap that does the same thing, so they go blind while they are in shed. And his usual coloration is about the same color as the past two, but he has a blown out patterning. So here we have Kaylee. She is a young children's python. She will get roughly the same size as the spotted pythons I just had out, maybe a little smaller. One of the big differences between a children's and a spotted python is that she will just continue to fade. The spots of a children's python are at their strongest when they are babies, and they usually fade as they grow up. Here we have Miss River. She is not all that tame. She is, we think, Kaylee's sister. She is a children's python. Again, young. She is threatening to strike at my face, which is why I kept pulling my hand away, as you just saw that false strike. And I wear the gloves so that my fingers don't get bitten.
I don't think that was a false strike. I'm pretty sure she would have bit you.
Yeah, no, she would have. I just backed the hand away because I know her. Despite everything, best intentions, sometimes the snake may just still be a little bit aggressive and or scared. Usually it's scared and uncertain is why they attack. Either that or they think you're downright food. This is Eleanor, our female Woma Python. We got her last out of all of her snakes, so just a month or two ago. Ooh.
Which means she is the least tame.
And she has a food response like crazy. I'm keeping her head away from me, and I am wearing gloves for these reasons. This is Cheaty. He is such a sweetie, and he is a Woma Python. Woma Pythons are very critically endangered. They are Australian, like the Antaresias, but they are endangered because of competition of invasive species and decreasing habitats like almost every animal on this planet. He is actually a specialist snake eater. He will eat basically anything in the wild too. Don't get me wrong. He has had some feeding responses pretty intense before, so I'm not fully letting him go to town until I see his body language relax. But if his body language relaxes, I can just carry him on my shoulders, do anything with him. Hi. Without the strong feeding response, which is very common in these animals, I would highly recommend it as a best first snake for anyone. But they tend to have an extreme feeding response, which translates to aggression.
Yeah, they're bitey. They are not a mean-spirited animal at all, but they are extremely hungry, and everything is food.
And they bite in that way. They don't bite like an animal in fear. Thank you for joining us in our modest menagerie. Please like, subscribe, and ring the bell.